Yesterday on Facebook, I asked you what features you wish were on today's DSLRs. I asked for things that are available today though, so nothing too out there, and there were a lot of answers. Some people said autofocus in video mode, and that's available on a lot of DSLRs now, but it's not an incredibly useful feature yet. People said an easier to clean sensor, Wi-Fi or Bluetooth in camera, or GPS in the camera. And again, those are things that are available in some cameras now, but definitely not in all of them, or not even in the majority of them. 3D capabilities was brought up. And a couple people actually said that they would remove features, which I thought was a pretty interesting answer, something to think about. But Greg said something that hit close to home with me. It's something that I've been wishing for a while now. I wish for several user configurable function settings on one dial. Let me explain. The thing that I wish I would see is a configurable dial where I could adjust my most commonly used settings. This is sort of available on a lot of cameras. My D800 here has the most buttons and dials of all the cameras in my collection. And I can configure some of the buttons to work by themselves or with the command dials to adjust different settings. Like this function button here, I can configure it to do a lot of different things. For example, I can choose to set my image area by holding the function button and then rotating the command dial back here. But a lot of cameras, like my D3100 here, or even my V1, which I'm using for video right now so you can't see it, they don't have a lot of buttons and dials. There are a few settings that you can access on the camera body itself. You can see up here some dials. And there is an info screen on the back. There's an info button. You can press it and you can see certain settings and adjust certain things. There's also the My Menu option on some of the Nikon DSLRs, which is nice. For me though, there's always something that I like to use or to adjust often that just isn't easy enough for me to get to. So I want a dial, somewhat like this, where I can decide what it adjusts. So take a look at this dial. This is where you can change the release mode, but we're just going to pretend that instead of these 4 release modes here, you have like 1, 2, 3, and 4. And you could go into your special configurable dial menu and set what you want to configure in each of these 4 slots. So for example, say that I want to be able to easily access active D-lighting, because for me, when I'm hiking, sometimes I turn it on and off from photo to photo. And what if I could put that in slot 1? So I could turn this dial to number 1, and then rotate my command dial and scroll through my options. And in the case of active D-lighting, at least on the D3100, the options would just be on and off. But as you turn the dial, you could see on or off if there was a control panel up here, or maybe on the LCD screen, what you're adjusting to. And then I guess there would have to be a neutral slot on the dial so that my command dial goes back to its normal function once I'm done adjusting each slot. Semantics. Anyway, then let's say for slot 2, I could designate it as my picture control adjustment. So I turn the dial to slot number 2, and then I turn the rear command dial and I adjust my picture control. I'd scroll through standard and vivid and monochrome and whatever else until I found the one I wanted. And then I would turn my dial back to its little neutral section, or neutral slot. And then I could do the same things for slots 3 and 4, or however many there are. I know that a lot of cameras already have elements like this. My D800 here, it has a bunch of different ways to configure the different buttons that are all over the body. And I know that you can change, picture control on the D3100 here by using the info screen. But my point is, I want easy access to adjust what I want to adjust on a regular basis. And I want it all in one spot. Ooh, you know what else would be cool? If the area next to the dial here, instead of it saying like 1, 2, 3, 4. If it was e-paper and it could tell me what I had designated each slot to be so that I didn't have to remember what was in each slot. Like instead of saying, number 1, it would say active D-lighting when I designated slot 1 as the active D-lighting slot anyway. I guess this would be somewhere between adding a feature and taking away features. I think I could get rid of a bunch of the buttons and dials on my camera's body if I had the flexibility to configure 1 or 2 dials. It might result in a simpler, more sleek DSLR body. Thanks for the conversation, guys. Your answers actually really got me to thinking more in depth about this idea that had been kind of rolling around in my noggin. Keep those questions coming.